Okay, good afternoon, entrepreneurs. Good afternoon, everyone from South Africa, from Kenya, from Senegal, from Sao Tome and Principe. You're all welcome to yet another Masterclass series organized by the Tony Elubelu Foundation. And the topic for today's session is adaptability and resilience in business. Again, I'll be doing some introductions very quickly, and I'll be introducing our facilitator and other people joining us on the session. So again, you're welcome and thank you for joining. So with me today is Foco Rollins. You all know Foco, who is going to be supporting with the French translations. And then we have our amiable Dr. Owen Omogaifo. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with her. And she's going to be taking the masterclass on adaptability and resilience in business. Dr. Owen is the president and group CEO of Transcorp PLC. And she's also worked in the foundation before as our chief operating officer. So she's familiar with a lot of you and she's familiar with entrepreneurship. So again, we want you to stay tuned, listen, learn more, so you can take the learnings from this session and use it to improve the launch of your business. So I'll quickly hand over to Foco to do the translations in French, and we'll hand over to Dr. Owen to start the session. So you're welcome again. Over to you, Foco. Thank you for joining.
Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue une fois de plus à ce masterclass, la énième de la série. Et aujourd'hui, nous allons avoir pour thème l'adaptabilité et la résilience en affaires. Donc, pour cela, nous avons comme facilitatrice le Dr. Owen, qui est la présidente et le DG du groupe Transnational Corporation et qui a déjà été à la fondation dans les années antérieures. Merci. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Ibuku and Foco. So nice to be back. I can't believe it's already been a year. So it's really good to be here today to talk about a topic that is very, very critical to being a successful entrepreneur. Foco, you can go ahead.
Donc, le temps a vite passé et une année plus tard, nous voici de nouveau pour une session que vous allez bien aimer parce que ça va faire de vous des entrepreneurs à succès.
Thank you. So today's session, we're going to try and make it interactive. I will go through certain theories, just try and walk you through, change management in a practical perspective. We'll look at a few theories. As we are having this discussion, what I would like each person to do is to reflect on their own businesses, reflect on your personal experience, okay? And when we're done, please feel free to ask your questions. I understand that there's a chat box. Even be putting the questions as we are going along, so Ibukun can read it at the end, and we can have a very robust conversation. Because look, you can read about the theories in any book, but this opportunity gives you to ask direct questions and you get direct answers. Foco?
OK, donc, comme guide pour cette session, nous allons envoyer une session très interactive où on va échanger sur 2 théories de management qui va concerner la thématique. Et il est question pour chacun de vous qui participez à cette session de refléter ce qui va se passer avec votre propre situation. Donc, bien évidemment, vous pouvez avoir ces théories dans les livres, mais il est important pour vous de poser vos questions dans le chat box sur YouTube afin qu'on puisse vous répondre en direct. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Foco. Next slide, please. So let's dive in. Go on. So typically, we hear how change initiatives, they fail. Something, even basic things that you want to change in what you're doing, they don't succeed. Or where they succeed, you don't get the results that you want to achieve. And as business people, we constantly have to work with change. The saying is that the only thing that is constant in life is change. But the question today is that why does change fail? What's the issue? And the answer is pretty simple, not so simple, but it's the understanding that a number of times when we are driving change, we forget that it is a process. It's not just something that happens at a moment in time. And that's why you find that when you try and do a shortcut towards changing something, it doesn't work. Because with a process, it must follow a certain flow that can be understood, clearly documented, and another person can explain it to others. It's not just about you. Now, what do we see? Quite often, you see where people use adaptability and resilience side by side. However, when you explore and look at the discussion or the understanding around what is resilience versus what is adaptability, it begins to make you understand where they differ or where one starts and one stops. So let's go in terms of definition. Resilience, you're talking about the capacity to quickly recover or bounce back from something you're facing. Can I go the long haul? If I'm faced with a challenge, am I able to withstand the challenge, the pressure I'm facing? Adaptability, on the other hand, is your ability to adjust to these challenges and create positivity out of them. It's saying there is a new policy that's affecting my business. Because I believe in the vision of what I'm trying to achieve with my business, I'm going to be resilient. I'm going to stay the long haul to achieve, to be able to succeed. Adaptability, however, is understanding what is this policy? How does it affect what I do? What are the changes I need to make in my current business model to be able to continue to sustain and drive my results and ensure that I stay in business? Coco?
Oui, concernant l'adaptabilité et la résilience en affaires, nous faisons un constat. C'est que la plupart des changements échouent ou bien apportent très peu de résultats. Pourquoi? Parce que généralement, les gens ne comprennent pas que le changement est un processus. Quand on veut une transformation, c'est un processus, ce n'est pas un événement. Donc, pour cela, il est important de pouvoir distinguer justement l'adaptabilité et la résilience. Donc, la résilience, c'est tout simplement le fait de pouvoir absorber le choc, de pouvoir comprendre dans quelle situation vous êtes foutu et de pouvoir absorber le choc. Alors que l'adaptabilité, c'est justement le fait que l'absorption de ce choc vous permet d'accepter et de suivre le courant ou bien le cours des choses telles qu'elles arrivent. Donc ça, c'est important pour vous de comprendre qu'en affaires, il peut arriver qu'on ait besoin de faire des changements et pour cela, vous devez mettre côte à côte l'adaptabilité et la résilience. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Foko. I always love listening to Foko. It helps me improve my French. Please go on, next slide. So we'll just go on to, again, deepen the discussion. Why is adaptability and resilience important to business? When you think about it, things are always changing. Your obligations remain there. There's a beautiful picture there about people trying to pull on their obligation to see how they make it towards results. You see that we constantly have rapidly changing technological advancements. Everything is constantly changing. We have the ChatGPT, we have AI changing the world. As a business, are you going to stay on what you were doing before? Or are you going to upgrade to what is the new thing to get things done? You also need to be able to maintain stability during a crisis. Crisis would always occur. It comes in different ways. It could be a supplier that is no longer available and has stopped without warning. It could be a customer that was your mainstay coming through and no longer available. But you must maintain stability, because if you don't maintain stability when you are faced with a crisis, people begin to run and there's confusion. As a business, you have to be able to adapt and remain resilient to be able to cope with the changing market conditions. For those of us who are operating in Nigeria, and I know this also marks a lot of countries across Africa, we've seen a lot of changes to fiscal and monetary policies. We've seen our currencies changing in terms of value. We've seen that we still have the lasting effect of the COVID-19 pandemic that's still affecting the supply chain that supports our businesses. So what do? You have to become extremely competitive and highly dynamic, because only when you are able to do this can you survive. When you build in adaptability and resilience as a competence you have, you'll find that you're able to recover from setbacks very quickly. Because one thing that is sure, right as rain, is that there will be setbacks. But what do you do with that setback? Do you run around like a headless chicken, worried about what's going to happen? Or do you stay focused? Understanding this is my goal. So I have a setback. I have a crisis. How do I deal with it? If you are able to build adaptability and resilience in your business, you're able to have long-term success. You're able to sustain, able to drive it, because you know that anything that I'm facing right now will pass. Or I am able to adapt my business to align with the new change, and be able to be in the company, or being able to be in business long-term. And last but definitely not the least, as a resilient and adaptable business, you have to be able to evolve to manage the evolving customer expectations. Customer needs constantly change. You cannot stay resolute, rigid, and say, okay, this is how I do my business, this is how I'm going to do my business, and no. You'll be out of order, you'll be out of business. I run Transcorp Group. Last week, I was in Germany, and I had this conversation with one of our key business partners. And I said to them, you need to review how you are operating in Nigeria, because we cannot continue to work with you on these terms. And that is what the adaptability is about, because customer needs are changing, customer pressures are changing, and we need to operate along those lines. Foko, please.
Donc, l'adaptabilité et la résilience, en quoi est-ce que c'est important dans le business? Vous êtes conscient que notre époque, c'est une époque de rapidité. La technologie va extrêmement vite. Et pour cela, les entrepreneurs doivent être capables d'accepter et de s'adapter, quels que soient les changements. L'enjeu, c'est quoi? L'enjeu, c'est que vous devez pouvoir maintenir votre stabilité en temps de crise. Les crises, il y en a. Vous avez vu la crise de COVID-19. Les crises, il y en a. Et quand il y a des crises, il est question pour l'entreprise de se maintenir. Et pour ça, vous avez besoin de résilience. Il est aussi important, dans un marché extrêmement changeant, de pouvoir s'adapter, de pouvoir copier les changements qui s'y passent afin de rester dans la compétitivité. À défaut, ça sera difficile d'être profitable, d'avoir une entreprise rentable. Par contre, pour pouvoir rester dans l'adaptabilité, il y a des revers. Et ces revers, vous ne pouvez pas y échapper. Vous devez être solide et donner la priorité à la suivi de votre entreprise. Laquelle suivi doit être managée sur le long terme. Parce que, quel que soit ce qui se passe, l'entreprise doit être une entreprise durable, doit être une entreprise qui réussit à traverser les temps de crise. Et il est aussi important de s'adapter aux changements. Ces changements, le plus souvent, viennent des clients. Lorsqu'un client attire votre attention, elle nous a parlé d'une expérience en Allemagne. Elle était en Allemagne et le client leur a dit clairement que faites attention, la façon que vous fonctionnez, là, il faut changer. Et directement, eux, ils se sont adaptés à ce changement qui a été voulu par le client afin de pouvoir continuer à satisfaire le client.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Now, how do you develop an adaptive and resilient reflective DNA? And again, like I said at the beginning of my statement, you should internalize this and pick what is applicable to your business. It is not a one-size-fits-all. You might not be able to have everything at once, or you say, I'm going to have a roadmap that I'll use to get to all of them. They're actually 6, not 5. Get there. 1. And by the way, coming up with this is to observe organizations and businesses who have been able to adapt, who have been able to build in adaptability and resilience in their DNA. 1, flexibility in processes and systems. Rules are good. Rules are good. Policies are good. Documented procedures and processes are good. And why are they good? It allows you to be able to repeat and duplicate success. However, what is bad is when they are so rigid that people cannot think. So if you have flexibility in your processes and systems, you're able to quickly adjust to market changes, regulatory updates, and different technology advancements and other triggers of change that would come in. What does it mean? It means you're able to see something coming and say, okay, this is how I currently do this. However, with the new world, I need to change my processes. I need to change my system so I can adapt to the new change. 2, as an organization, as a leader of an organization, you have to drive a culture that is open to innovation and new ideas. If things are constantly shut down, people would not be innovative. So you might even have something happening that somebody within your team can come up with ideas of how to deal with it, but because it's not encouraged in the organization, simply because no, this is how we do it, we must do it in this way, you run into issues. 3, be proactive rather than reactive. What does it being proactive mean? It means you're able to see you're able to plan ahead, anticipate the changes. So if there's, for example, a change in interest rates, so you're able to ask yourself, okay, what does this mean? My various suppliers, can they still supply? How much would they begin to charge me? How much would they charge me? So for that, what do I need to do? Can my customers take this new charge? Do I need to adjust certain things? Can I look at the process of production, the materials that go into what I am producing to ensure I'm still able to meet my customer expectation at the right pricing? Because see, customers also have a limit they cannot go beyond, but you also have to be true to your product. So of course, when you are doing your adjustments, you're saying, how do I deliver a product that still upholds my quality standards, but quality standard that the customer is willing to pay for, as opposed to the change has happened and you're now beginning to run around. So you begin to prepare to say, hey, I'm going to have a price increase. It's so and so months. And you're reaching out to your clients early enough that, hey, things have changed. I can no longer sell at so and so price. I'm going to be having a price review, whether it's in a month's time, it's 2 months' time. And that way they also move and are able to work with you as you are changing. A 4th point about organizations that have been able to embed resilience and adaptability in their DNA is that they have strong leadership and vision. There has to be a captain in the ship. And that captain has to be able to drive a clear vision, communicate the anticipated changes in the market, industry trends, make decisions in a timely and concise manner. And where there also needs to be a change or a pivot on the strategies that have been put in place, do so very quickly, have a sense of urgency when you are navigating change situations. All of this must be enhanced by an effective risk management strategy. You have to be aware, what are your risks? What am I looking at? Risk is when you have proper risk management, is that you're anticipating and predicting the probability of something happening. That you recognize a risk does not mean it's going to happen. You have a risk, you define what are the mitigants, meaning what are the things you need to do to prevent that risk happening, or if it occurs, how you minimize the impact on your business. An example of such, let's look at our hospitality business, Transcorp Hotels. We are an international brand. So for years, we have been driving a strong local supply strategy, an indigenization strategy, because you can't rely on imports to run a property as huge as the Transcorp Hotel. You can't. So we've been driving a localization strategy so that now that it's now become more difficult and more expensive for anybody to import, you'll see that our risk is contained. The exposure that we are facing is contained. So this helps you to continue to stay adaptive and you are resilient to what is going to happen, the changes within the environment. Last but most definitely not the least, because if you think about it, it ties into everything I've mentioned before. Having robust communication channels. Communication has to be up, down, top, down, down, up, across different layers. You have to have a way you get information back, have a way you communicate information, use that information to adapt to the changes that are so needed, ensuring that you are able to facilitate a coordinated and swift response. Coco?
En réalité, l'adaptabilité et la résilience doivent être dans votre ADN. Ça doit être dans votre sang. Et pour cela, nous vous donnons 5 points ou 6 points importants que vous devez noter et qui vont vous permettre de pouvoir faire face à tout mouvement de changement. Première des choses, c'est la flexibilité dans votre process et dans votre système. Comme on vous l'a dit, le changement est un process. Ce n'est pas un événement. En conséquence, lorsque vous avez des situations de changement, il est important pour vous de faire juste une mise à jour de tout ce qui est comme règles, pratiques, bonnes pratiques et de pouvoir permettre que votre système soit celui-là qui va toujours vous permettre de réussir dans la phase après changement. La deuxième chose, c'est d'être très ouvert aux innovations et aux nouvelles idées. Ça, c'est bien évidemment une affaire de comportement. Ça veut dire qu'au quotidien, vous devez avoir un sens d'attrait par rapport aux nouvelles choses. Et pour cela, vous allez encore mieux comprendre dans le 3. Dans le 3, on vous dit qu'il faut être proactif. C'est-à-dire, n'attendez pas d'être parmi ceux qui vont subir les changements. Non, soyez proactif. Si vous êtes ouvert à l'innovation, ça voudrait dire que vous sentez venir. Et quand vous sentez venir, directement, vous adaptez votre système, vous adaptez vos process afin de pouvoir être de ceux-là qui vont être les leaders. Parce qu'en même temps, vous devez avoir un fort leadership et une très bonne vision pour pouvoir supporter tout changement lié à votre environnement. Vous devez être ces acteurs-là qui sont en réalité les propulseurs, les avant-gardistes dans un mouvement. Et dans ce mouvement, les risques ne manquent jamais. Elle a pris l'exemple, le docteur Owen a pris l'exemple de Transcorp qui fait dans l'hébergement. Elle dit ceci, ils n'ont pas attendu une certaine crise pour mettre en place des procédures d'approvisionnement local. Ils appellent ça l'indigénisation, c'est-à-dire l'approvisionnement local, parce qu'on ne peut pas développer une économie avec l'importation. Alors, très tôt, ils ont développé un système et des procédures d'approvisionnement sur le plan local. Et aujourd'hui, qu'il y a une crise de devises, on va dire, où l'importation, bref, n'est pas la bienvenue, vous voyez qu'eux, ils n'ont pas de problème. Directement, cette crise retrouve qu'ils ont un système qui s'est déjà adapté et qui attendait même ce genre de situation. Et pour finir, c'est très important d'avoir une très bonne communication, d'avoir des canaux de communication qui sont fiables. Et ce n'est pas la moindre des choses, parce que la communication, c'est toujours du haut vers le bas et du bas vers le haut. Donc, c'est une communication à double sens qui permet à tous les acteurs de se sentir intéressés, de se sentir valorisés dans la vie de l'entreprise.
Thank you very much, Foucault. Next slide. I will go a bit faster because I'm quite conscious of our time. And now, looking at the theories we discussed earlier, and I believe I've communicated or set the context for this. This is a 4-step movement for adapting to change. 1, they say establish a sense of urgency. What does this mean in simple terminology? Remember, they are not working alone. Establish a sense of urgency, meaning it has to be clear. Why do we need to change? What's going on? What is the crisis or the potential crisis? Or may not always be a crisis, because, sometimes we look at change and think of it from a negative perspective. It's also positive. It is, what is the opportunity that is coming in here? Number 2 is to create a powerful guiding coalition. Simply speaking, is gather people around you that can help you drive that change across the organization. It is challenging your team to work together as a group, unified towards a common purpose. 3 is that common purpose, creating the vision. So we've already talked about establishing a sense of urgency. Starting, what is the issue? What's the big idea? What's going on? Number two, who are the people you need to work with to understand that big idea further, to drive it across the organization? Three, working with these people, create a vision. And when you create your vision, it must be something that can be written down. They don't need to get into your head to understand what that vision is. They here, meaning the people that you need to work with, whether it's your technology, whether it's your process, your team, what is it? Then develop the strategies that would help achieve that vision. Because if you don't have something that is well documented, how do you know whether you're moving along the pathway or not? Then fourth is to communicate the vision. You must state that thing that you have sat down to write, you have to communicate it. Otherwise, it becomes a piece of paper in a file, absolutely not helpful to anybody, yourself inclusive. So to go over again on those 4 points I just raised, they said to go over again on the 4 points, one is establish a sense of urgency. 2, form a powerful guiding coalition. By the way, it continues on the next slide. Form a powerful guiding coalition. 3 is to create a vision. 4, communicate that vision. This is an 8-step model for adapting to change. Foko, please take us through these first 4.
OK. L'adaptation au changement passe par un certain nombre de points que nous partageons avec vous. Il y en a 8. On va commencer par les 4 premiers. Le premier, c'est d'avoir un sens de l'urgence. Donc, pour cela, vous devez toujours être un observateur de votre marché pour savoir quelles sont les réalités du marché. Parce que dans ces réalités-là, il faut dire que le changement n'est pas toujours négatif. Il peut y avoir des opportunités. Et il est donc question pour vous de saisir ces opportunités. En deuxième position, c'est de mettre en place une coalition, une équipe forte qui peut vous permettre de pouvoir gagner dans le processus de transformation. Et dans cette équipe, les gens doivent s'encourager et surtout travailler ensemble. 3, avoir une vision qui permet que les gens acceptent de mettre leur effort à contribution pour pouvoir faire la transformation. Et surtout, développer des stratégies qui vont vous permettre d'atteindre cette vision. En 4e position, cette vision doit être communiquée. Un bout de ça ne doit pas juste être un bout de papier dans des dossiers, non. C'est quelque chose que vous devez bien travailler, communiquer dessus et permettre à tous ceux qui vous entourent, les membres de l'équipe, à s'approprier cette nouvelle façon de fonctionner. C'est ça le rôle de la coalition.
Thank you. Go on. Next slide, please. Now, to the 5th step, you have to empower others to act on the vision. Again, we have gone through certain steps. Step 1, the sense of urgency. 2, a guiding coalition, meaning the team that's going to work on driving it. 3, creating a vision. 4, communicating said vision. And the 5th point is you have to empower those that would act on the vision. So the change is not all around you or about you. You're looking at what are the different things I need to do to empower people to act. 1, what are the obstacles to change in your organization? Get rid of them. What are the systems or structures that can undermine that vision you want to achieve? You have to change them. Then you encourage people to be able to take risks and come up with different ideas that you can use to drive your vision further. 6, remember I talked about a roadmap earlier on. As you're implementing your vision, remember we had some strategies at point 3 where we defined them. As you're implementing it, identify the wins that you are getting, build on it, and drive that to generate more change and more success for the change you are trying to achieve. Why is this important? When you make certain progress, it encourages people to go on. Likewise, if you do not make progress, you bring out those lack of progress and let it be clear. Employees that are driving the change, encourage them. Employ people that are going to be aligned to what you're trying to achieve. They will tell you recruit for attitude and train for aptitude. In other words, recruit for attitude and I will train you for your skills. And reinvigorate the process with new projects. Look for themes, look at how to create excitement around the changes that you're doing. Number 7 says plan for and create short-term wins, also tied into number 6. It's really around consolidating, encouraging those who are doing it. Those that are not doing it, give them negative encouragement. There are all sorts of different things that we do. And number 8, which is the last but not the least, is about institutionalization. What does that mean? Writing the way you want your organization to work into your processes, your policies, and the procedures in your organization. You will reward those behaviors you want to see and sanction those that you don't want to see. And of course, you have to continue to communicate this change and the success that you're seeing. As you can see, this is an 8-step thing. It's not one. It's not by issuing a memo. Yeah, we are changing everything today in the organization. No, it's a process. Again, remember my opening sentence about my opening statement about why certain change initiatives do not succeed. They do not succeed because managers see change as an event as opposed to a whole process, a transformation. And with transformation, it takes time. Foucault.
Donc, en 5e position, il vous est conseillé de coacher les autres pour qu'ils s'approprient la vision. Et surtout d'éviter tout ce qui est obstacle au changement. Il faut vous débarrasser des obstacles au changement. Pour changer un système, c'est une chose assez sérieuse que vous devez en prendre acte. Encourager les autres à sortir vraiment de leur zone de confort et de ne pas garder les idées traditionnelles, les mauvaises habitudes. Donc, en 6e position, il faut consolider l'amélioration et produire tout ce qui peut apporter ce changement-là, effectivement. Pour ça, soyez prêts à rendre crédible tout ce qui est autour de vous afin que votre vision prenne vraiment du large. Soyez prêts à recruter des personnes qui contribuent pour cette nouvelle vision. Et surtout, mettre en place des process, des projets et des thématiques qui vont permettre à tout le monde d'être dans le bain. En 7e position, il est important de créer des petites victoires, donc des plans avec des petits termes. C'est-à-dire, comme on dit souvent, il faut célébrer les victoires. On vous a dit que c'est un processus, ce n'est pas un événement. Donc, il faut des petits milestones, des petites étapes importantes que lorsque vous les traversez, que tout le monde soit content, que tout le monde soit joyeux, afin de concentrer en courage. Et en 8e position, très important, il faut institutionnaliser les approches, c'est-à-dire rendre formel, bien écrit, comme on pourra de toute façon transmettre plus tard à ceux qui vont rejoindre les équipes. C'est ça aussi qui va permettre de facilement mettre en place un plan de succession. Parce que si vous ne modélisez pas vos approches, ça sera du temps perdu. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Foucault. So we go to the next model of change, which is a simplified one, but again, it still just ties in. This one is 5 steps. 5 steps simplified, but again, it doesn't take away from the other 8 steps, but you need to look at your organization and understand what fits you. 1, a change has happened or a change is about to happen. What do? First step, you have to accept the change. And what does accept the change mean? Is that understanding of, you know what, this thing is going to happen. So what do? Do I sit back and be resisting, pushing, or do I accept it? When you tell yourself, I will accept this change, I will take on the challenge of this change, you go to the second aspect, which is developing a positive mindset towards the change. A few minutes ago, I said that people wrongly look at change as negative, but it's positive. There's always opportunity. Develop a positive mindset. This change is happening. This change has to happen. When you've developed a positive mindset, you reinforce that positive mindset by going to number 3. Number 3 is about focusing on what you can control. Focus on what's in you. What are the systems, the values that I have instead of your fears? I'm not saying ignore your fears, no, because you will ignore your fears at your own peril. With your fears, recognize them and say, okay, I have this fear. With this fear, what am I using to, how am I mitigating it? How am I managing that fear? I always like talking about what you can control. And the example I love to use most, it's such an easily implementable example, It's about when it's raining. You're going to work in the morning and it starts raining. Do you say, oh, it's raining, I will not go out? No. Because then you're just focusing on, okay, my fear is that if I go out in the rain, I will get wet. That is a reality. But you have to get to work. So what do? You get an umbrella. The umbrella is your ability to hold an umbrella is within your control. You cannot control the weather, but you can hold an umbrella and walk through the rain because you understand that I must get to where I'm going to because I have to deliver results. Number 4, get a fresh perspective. You can't do it alone. And this is the reality. No man, no woman is an island. Engage with the people in your sphere. And one of the things I really enjoy about the Tony Lumolo Entrepreneurship Program is that you have, so each year we choose 1,000 people minimum. That means that you have about 999 people to be able to engage with, to be able to discuss. And I know we used to have hubs, so you have different people through the TEF Connect, through your meetups that you're able to talk to and share knowledge. You can also meet with people outside of the entrepreneurship program to get their perspective. Oh, this thing is coming, this change, how are you adapting? These are my thoughts, how do we go in? It's about collaboration. And the last point is that you continue to evolve and evolve and evolve and evolve and push yourself by setting new goals. When you hit one goal, pick up another one, continue to stretch yourself, continue to stretch yourself. As you can see, the 5-step thing here is similar to the 8-step. So you look at what works for you for the situation that you are at. Could it be a big change? Could it be a small change? But it's up to you to look at it. But remember again, it is a process. It is not an event. Foco.
Donc, nous allons partager 5 étapes pour rester résilient et surtout avoir une adaptation au changement très efficace. Première des choses, quand vous voyez venir, il faut accepter le changement. Quand vous sentez que l'environnement est en train de bouger, ne soyez pas réfractaire. L'acte numéro 1, c'est d'accepter le changement. Deuxième, lorsqu'on a accepté le changement, c'est de développer une attitude qui permet d'embrasser ce changement, donc de développer une attitude positive qui permet d'embrasser ce changement. Et cette attitude positive peut donc vous encourager au troisième aspect ou la troisième étape, qui signifie rester focalisé sur ce que vous contrôlez. Ne vous souciez pas de quelque chose qui est hors de votre contrôle, comme la pluie. Maintenant, être focalisé sur ce que vous contrôlez ne veut pas dire que vous n'avez pas de peur. Certes, vous avez peur d'être mouillé, mais autant vous ne contrôlez pas la pluie, autant vous ne devez pas avoir peur d'y rentrer. Au moins, dotez-vous d'un parapluie que vous maîtrisez et rentrez dans la pluie. Voilà un exemple très simple qui a été pris pour montrer comment vous devez avoir le contrôle à tout moment de ce qui vous arrive. Vous devez avoir une maîtrise de votre environnement. En 4e position, vous avez maintenant le fait de toujours avoir de nouvelles perspectives. À la Fondation Tony Lumolo, par exemple, chaque année, il y a minimum 1000 personnes qu'on recrute comme entrepreneurs. Ça veut dire que vous avez 999 possibilités de personnes avec qui vous pouvez échanger pour avoir de nouvelles idées. Et en dernière étape, c'est toujours avoir de nouveaux objectifs. Donc, c'est un processus. Toujours avoir de nouveaux objectifs.
Thank you very much. So next, well, we will look at case studies because we're talking about change. And we're just going to look at companies that didn't adapt to changes in their business environments. Please go on. Why is this interesting? You know, when you're at the top, you feel I'm doing fine, I'm great, I don't need to change. On this slide here, we have Blockbuster. Blockbuster for, well, I would say in Nigeria, I grew up in a town in Benin, in Nigeria called Benin, and we had what was called Music Workshop. I forget what they had in Lagos now, but I'm sure everybody on this call, we had that local shop where we went to rent videos, whether it was the VCR or the DVR tapes back then, Betamax and the rest of them. We went to rent videos, or you borrowed videos from your friends. Blockbuster was doing very well as a business. From movies to video games, they were doing very well. They were arguably one of the most iconic brands in the video rental space. Very well known, highly respected. At the height of its growth or glory in 2004, they had 84,300 employees worldwide with over 9,000 stores. That company, barely 6 years later, filed for bankruptcy. Why? They were unable to transition to a digital model. Today, how do we watch movies? Netflix. In 2000, Netflix approached Blockbuster with an offer to sell their company, but no, Blockbuster said no. Why? Netflix digital movie is a small niche business. Note, they offered themselves to Blockbuster for sale in 2000 for a mere $50 million. And Blockbuster was unable to look into the future and understand that with the wave of internet penetration and the compression of the way data information was shared, that digital was the way forward. But the CEO at the time said, nope, I'm not interested. Now, today, or let me say with the figures here, as at July 2017, this is 7 years after Blockbuster had filed for bankruptcy, 17 years after Netflix had asked Blockbuster to buy them. Netflix now had 103.9 million subscribers worldwide with a revenue of $8.8 billion. This data is still. I'm pretty sure that today they have way higher, if we even look at the internet penetration of Africa. Foko?
Donc, nous allons maintenant prendre quelques études de cas. On va commencer par le cas de Blockbuster et de Netflix. Donc, il se passe que Blockbuster, c'était une entreprise de location de cassettes vidéo et ainsi de suite. Nous, on a grandi dans ce rythme-là. Alors, une certaine année, et Blockbuster avec environ 84 300 employés dans le monde. Mais en 2000, Netflix s'est rapproché d'eux et leur a proposé de les racheter à 50 millions de dollars américains. Blockbuster a refusé en disant que Netflix a une technologie qui est juste une petite niche parce qu'eux, ils n'avaient pas vu le changement venir. Alors, qu'est-ce qui s'est passé des années plus tard, en 2017 en l'occurrence? Entre-temps, Blockbuster déjà a fait banqueroute et a fermé les portes, mais Netflix, à la date d'aujourd'hui, a 103 millions d'abonnés dans tout le monde entier et fait près de 9 milliards de chiffre d'affaires, 9 milliards de dollars de chiffre d'affaires. Donc, vous comprenez que Blockbuster n'a pas compris qu'il y avait un changement qui s'opérait et qu'il fallait rapidement passer à une autre technologie. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next. And the one that this one always is really interesting. The way we capture pictures. At a point in time, Kodak, Canon, they were the height of picture capturing, from making films to making cameras. Back then, they used to say Kodak moments. Today, where are we in the world? More often than not, we're using our camera phones to take pictures. We've gone digital. And this is just another example of a company that was unable to adjust to change. And today, where are they? We can't find them anymore. Kodak in 2012 filed for bankruptcy after exiting most of its product streams. And then it reemerged in 2013 as a smaller company. But this was a company that was the giant when you talk about photography. So as you can see, we need to adapt to change as a business. The two examples I've used today, these are things that are very personal. We can see it. We were here. We experienced it. Nobody is buying film anymore, except for those who are really like, oh, want to do this just for maybe some hobby. But if you're looking at doing photography, you use your digital cameras these days. Coco.
Alors, le cas de Kodak est pathétique et tout le monde peut le comprendre. Kodak, autant que Canon, c'était des très grosses compagnies qui agissaient dans le domaine de la photographie. Alors, qu'est-ce qui s'est passé? Ils n'ont pas compris qu'il y avait un changement qui s'opérait. Et Kodak, par exemple, pour prendre ce cas-là, a fermé les portes en 2012 pour renaître en 2013 comme une toute petite compagnie qui gère un certain nombre de clients. Donc, vous comprenez qu'à la date d'aujourd'hui, nous prenons les photos tous avec nos téléphones portables. Donc, voilà un autre modèle de changement que la société Kodak n'a pas su s'approprier afin de pouvoir s'adapter. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Foko. Now, we'll just go straight as we begin to wrap up. Let's talk about Transcorp itself. Is a story that is well known, but I'll just pick some highlights. I became the group CEO of Transcorp in 2020, March, which is the height of, that's when COVID was just coming up. And by being adaptable and resilient to change, because that's part of who we are as a group, the broader Heirs Holdings Group, which Tony Lumelu Foundation and Transcorp is a part of, we are adaptable. We are resilient. So in 2020, when the world was hit with COVID-19 pandemic, something that was really interesting, I recall that so for us, we've always been mobile. We've been using Microsoft Teams, Zoom, and the rest for our meetings. So it wasn't difficult for us to transition for where those businesses lend themselves to that. But let's look at our hospitality business. The hotel that requires people to actually walk in and have engagements. We saw a dip in our performance. We had 5% occupancy in our hotel. Everybody was scared for their lives. But you know what we did? We understood that we had to stay resilient. You had to give people something to look up to look forward to know that they can have faith in you, your company, and the product offering that you have. A lot of businesses were forced to close in that period. But for us, it was an opportunity for us to redefine and reestablish ourselves as clear leaders. So we continued to stay open, the hotel, even though we had no customers, was just, like I said, 5%. We came up with innovative ideas. It's on record that Transcorp Hilton Abuja actually did the first drive-through cinema in Nigeria, and others followed. We spent money. We were communicating with our clients, keeping them informed. Previously, people used to ask me, oh, how do you guys keep this hotel so clean? You never see the cleaners, because that was how we operated. We wanted you to enjoy the hospitality of our hotel business without knowing how we do it. But as people were concerned about their safety, we had to change that. We had to make our cleaners more visible so people could have reassurance and saying, okay, this hotel is very clean. We're going to continue. We even changed their uniform from the uniform that wasn't so well recognizable before. You just walk past them, you might not notice, to something that was more striking. We had the clean stay program. So if you go to the hotel, they would have cleaned your room and there will be a seal. So you can see that this room has been cleaned and sanitized. But we stayed resilient. We went on to do a rights issue because our revenue had dropped and we had obligations. We did a rights issue. And our rights issue was fully subscribed. And we used that to invest in the hotel and meet our obligations. Where are we? Moving from that, 2020, where we had a revenue of 75.3 billion as a group, maintaining our resilience and our adaptability. We closed 2023 as a group with a revenue of 196.9 billion naira. Now, what is interesting, in Q1 of this year, our revenue is almost 90 billion, meaning that in one quarter, we've achieved more than about half of what we did for the full year of the previous year. In that same time, when others were scrambling, we kept on looking at how to improve and diversify our business. In 2020, we acquired Afam Power Genco, that is two plants, Afam 3 Fast Power and Afam Power PLC, 100% acquisition. We went on to settle a dispute that had been there with Transcorp relating to our oil assets, OPL 281. We launched a new product, Aura by Transcorp Hotels. So when people were looking at, oh, how do we survive? We were looking at how do we grow? Very interesting. It wasn't enough to survive. Growth remained part of our focus, part of our vision. We put ourselves into different focus group sessions back then. I would meet on Microsoft Teams, Zoom, and different licenses to see how are we growing. Because when people have that vision of there's something to look forward to look ahead to, it gives them hope. And as a leader, you must understand how to drive hope. And that's how we're able to navigate the crisis that happened 2020, 2021. And what was the result? Transcorp Hotel has moved from an occupancy of barely 5% in 2020, and moved on to getting to today, we are averaging 85%. Our power businesses, we've increased our generation capacity and we've improved. Employee welfare, employee morale is at an all-time high. Why? We followed the process. Go to the next slide. I'll let Foko take both of them together because it flows better. We kept our heads when the storm was rising. We came together as a group. We were clear about our vision. And our purpose in Transcorp, we say, is to improve lives and transform Africa. And we brought it in to say, how do we become a household name? How does a Transcorp business become a household name? And by gathering that coalition of people, defining the vision, we communicated. Gosh, where we communicated, engaging with our staff, WhatsApp group, engaging with regulators, stakeholders, our shareholders. Transcorp PLC was the first to have its AGM virtually. When the Corporate Affairs Commission said during COVID that go online and do your AGM, we did our AGM. Today, Transcorp Group has 3 companies listed on the Nigerian Exchange. Transcorp PLC itself, Transcorp Hotels PLC, and more recently, Transcorp Power PLC. And we've come from a combined market cap of barely 500 million naira. Today, we are at 4.3 trillion naira in market capitalization. What does that tell you? If you have resilience and adaptability in your business, you will succeed. Tough times will come, but you will overcome. Foko, please.
OK. Nous allons partager avec vous le cas de Transcorp Group. Donc, le docteur OM a rejoint Transcorp Group en pleine Covid, c'est-à-dire en mars 2020, à une époque où le marché de l'hébergement était vraiment totalement à terre. L'hôtel faisait pratiquement moins de 5% de taux d'occupation des chambres. Donc, c'était véritablement la crise. Alors, qu'est-ce qu'il a fallu faire? Elle nous raconte que l'hôtel est resté un hôtel très propre et a communiqué sur la propriété, malgré qu'il n'y avait pas les clients. L'hôtel est resté ouvert. Les réunions se sont faites sur Teams, sur Zoom. L'hôtel a mis en place des stratégies pour redorer le blason de tout son environnement. Et les revenus qui étaient en 2020 de pratiquement 75 milliards de naira sont passés en 2023 à 196 milliards de naira. Et elle nous annonce que seulement le premier trimestre 2024, ils ont fait pratiquement 99 milliards de naira, c'est-à-dire pratiquement la moitié de ce qu'ils ont fait l'année passée a été fait cette année en une semaine, en un trimestre. Donc, vous comprenez que pour avoir ce type de résultats, il a fallu mettre en place un certain nombre de stratégies, comme par exemple acheter un groupe et retravailler toute son autonomie au niveau de l'énergie. Donc, il y a tout un ensemble de politiques que Transcorp a mis en place. Malgré la douleur, c'est ce qu'on appelle la résilience. Malgré toute la turbulence qu'il y avait, ils n'ont pas baissé les mains. Ils ont beaucoup travaillé au point d'en arriver aujourd'hui à des résultats magnifiques. Donc, elle nous annonce que le groupe Transcorp a pratiquement 3 entreprises cotées en bourse, alors que tel n'était pas le cas avant. Et que même pendant ou après la COVID, lorsque il a été annoncé qu'il était important de faire les assemblées générales en ligne, Transcorp a été l'une des premières entreprises à faire son assemblée générale en ligne. Et aujourd'hui, à travers toutes ces stratégies de résilience et d'adaptation, il se retrouve pratiquement avec 85% de taux d'occupation des chambres à la date de décembre 2023. Donc, voilà un exemple d'adaptation. Voilà un exemple de résilience parce qu'on était en état de crise et le Dr Owen a su conduire ses équipes à avoir de tels résultats. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Foucault. So as I wrap up, let me just go over. Next slide, please. In conclusion, change is a part of us. And let me leave you with some tips on how you can create a culture of adaptability and resilience. One, you lead by example. The leadership plays a crucial role in this, in shaping a company culture. People they will emulate the behavior you demonstrate rather than what you say. So it helps you if what you say and what you're doing tie in, so that when they remember what you say, they are able to tie it into what you do. So if you want people to operate quickly, maybe have a sense of urgency, you also have to demonstrate that behavior. Two, encourage learning and growth. Very important. As human beings, we typically want to just stick with doing what we are familiar with. Push your people, push yourself, push your processes, challenge them to see how you continue to adapt. Broaden knowledge, broaden skills. Today, information is just a Google search away. Three, have clear communication. You have to keep your stakeholders informed about what you're trying to do. What are the goals? Where are the challenges? And how are we dealing with these challenges? And what are the strategies for success? Your communication has to be a two-way thing. It's not a radio where you are just issuing information or you're just on a megaphone. You must have your earphones on as well so you can hear feedback that your people are sharing with you. Embrace change. Remember, what we're doing here is fostering a culture of adaptability and resilience. Instead of constantly resisting change or wailing about it, challenge those around you, challenge yourself. So see each change as an opportunity for new growth, an opportunity to conquer new lands, new terrains that previously you hadn't conquered before. Promote collaboration. You are not an island. If you have somebody within your team who doesn't like to collaborate, no, tell to the person, look, you may be smart, but you're smarter when you work with others. You should reward and recognize resilience. So people who are embodying and showing the value that you're trying to demonstrate, encourage them. Communicate it, let people know. Put incentives, put programs that will drive it. And last but not the least, it's good to set realistic expectations. Do not set goals that make people feel defeated, but also don't set goals that don't challenge people to grow. There's a sweet spot. And the job of a leader is understanding what is that sweet spot that allows people to be motivated rather than burnt out by unrealistic expectations. But as you can see, a lot comes back to the leader. Foucault, thank you.
Donc, pour finir, on va partager avec vous 7 astuces pour pouvoir avoir et maintenir la culture de l'adaptabilité et de la résilience. Première des choses, apprenez à être des leaders qui prêchent par l'exemple. L'exemple vaut toujours 100 fois mieux que ce que vous dites. Et pour cela, vous devez au quotidien faire des choses et les partager au point où votre équipe soit au courant de ce que vous faites. C'est ça l'exemple. L'exemple, c'est quelque chose qu'on voit. Ce ne sont pas vos dires qui sont importants. Encouragez les gens à apprendre et à croître. Donc, apprenez de ce que vous faites au point où il y a toujours de l'apprentissage continu, une amélioration continue de ce que vous faites. C'est ça qui est le gage de la croissance. Encouragez vos employés à avoir de nouvelles compétences, à s'ouvrir et à comprendre les changements qu'il y a dans votre secteur. Utilisez des techniques de communication qui sont claires au point de permettre à tout le monde dans l'entreprise d'être au courant des défis, des stratégies. Soyez transparent dans la communication pour permettre à tout le monde de s'adapter et de comprendre où est-ce que l'entreprise est en train de partir. Embrasser le changement. C'est quelque chose qui encourage les employés de voir les opportunités qu'il y a dans la croissance. Ça permet de créer un environnement où tout le monde trouve son compte et où les choses tiennent compte des nouvelles circonstances. Faites aussi la promotion de la collaboration. La collaboration permet à l'équipe d'être toujours ensemble. Et pour ça, vous devez encourager le dialogue. le travail d'équipe, le brainstorming, afin que les perspectives et les nouvelles solutions soient partagées par tout le monde. Une chose importante, c'est la reconnaissance. Soyez reconnaissants envers ceux qui s'impliquent. Mettez en place des programmes de reconnaissance qui permettent à ceux qui sont résilients d'être récompensés vis-à-vis des efforts et des croyances positives qu'ils apportent au sein de l'entreprise. Dernière des choses, et pas des moindres, c'est le fait de mettre en place des objectifs et des attentes qui sont réalistes. Peut-être pas trop élevés au point de décourager les uns et les autres, peut-être pas trop bas au point de laisser tout le monde dans un état de latence. Donc, c'est à vous, le leader, d'avoir le tempo, de savoir exactement quel est le juste milieu pour que tout le monde puisse trouver son compte. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Foucault. Thanks for doing this interpretation. I think this is the end of my talk. We'll now open for questions and answers. So, Ibukun, back to you, please.
Thank you very much for an amazing and impactful session. We've been getting a lot of comments from the entrepreneurs saying this was very insightful, very impactful, and they're excited. So we have very few questions, but before the questions, I'll just quickly read the comments we received about the session. So we got comments from Pello. Pello says, while having a strategic plan is essential, flexibility within that plan is equally important. Set your goals, be ready to adjust your tactics as circumstances changes. Thank you, Dr. Owen. Then there's another one from Beverly. Focus on what you can control. Very important. Also thanking Dr. Owen for the session. Then we have another one from Jonelle. Positivity in business is very essential. Above all, surround yourself with positive people. Thank you, Dr. Owen, for the session. Then we have another comment from Ezigbo. Don't underestimate the power of vision. And then another comment from Fabulous J. Very true. It is important for a business to stay relevant and adapt to changing times. Thank you, Dr. Owen. Then we have another comment from Pure Life. Innovation is one of the driving agents for business sustainability. Then another comment, I'll just read two more comments because there are a lot of comments. Wonderful company indeed. That's Transcorp PLC. Look about how you grow in all your businesses. Business today is all about growth. Another one and the last from Missionary Support Project. Tough times are bound to come, but with resilience and the right attitude, we come out stronger. Thank you, Dr. Owen. So we received a lot of comments around the session, and then I'll go to a few questions that we received so Dr. Owen can provide clarity and give guidance on those questions. Question one from Saint Mac. How is AI likely to disrupt businesses the way digital disrupted analog, as illustrated by the case study of Blockbuster here? Thanks. Over to you, Ma. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. I think this is a clear question that you have to answer yourself. Reason is, you know your business that you're doing, is to look at the various facets of your business and say which aspect of it can lend itself to AI. Are there things I do today that I can do more effectively, either through AI or just even leveraging AI, right? So it's to look at your business, each part end to end, and come up with your own AI adaptation strategy to it. So if we use the example of the Blockbuster, so as technology was coming up, and we found that the way media was being distributed was getting more and more compressed, and people were having access, internet penetration was getting deeper. A sit-down conversation of how do we move our method of sharing content with our end user, because that's what they do. That's what they failed to recognize. They failed to recognize that their business was actually not leasing videotapes. Their business was sharing content. So if you bring that into AI, ask yourself, what is my business today? And AI as a platform, how do I get it? And your business could be, what is my job today? If I'm a content creator, what's AI going to do to my job as a content creator? Consulting firms today, what they used to have before, a lot of all these international consulting firms, they had a quote and unquote, some kind of Google that they had where they kept knowledge. Knowledge was their tool. Today, we all have knowledge democratized. So how do you evolve? So I'm going to throw it back to say, understand what AI is about, look at your own business and say, how with the changes that AI is bringing, how is it going to disrupt my business? And how do I prepare for that disruption? So I'm able to be resilient, to adapt, and ultimately to grow. Ibukum.
All right, thank you very much. So I'll hand over to Foucault. Foucault, please quickly translate to French and then we can move to the next question. Thank you.
Après quelques commentaires et reconnaissances de félicitations, donc on a eu une question qui revient sur qu'est-ce qui n'a pas marché avec Blockbuster et comment faire pour s'approprier, par exemple, aujourd'hui, l'intelligence artificielle. Donc, le docteur Owen explique que, en fait, il faut déjà disséquer votre activité ou votre métier et savoir étape par étape en quoi est-ce que l'intelligence artificielle peut vous être utile. Alors, est-ce que l'intelligence artificielle peut permettre que nous soyons plus efficaces ou pas? La réponse forcément va être oui quelque part. Et à ce moment-là, vous devez vous intéresser à l'intelligence artificielle et voir en quoi est-ce que ça impacte votre métier, en quoi est-ce que ça impacte votre job ou votre activité. Et du coup, vous mettez en place les conditions qui vont vous permettre de garder votre cap. À défaut, il va vous arriver ce qui est arrivé à Blockbuster dans les années 2000. Parce qu'effectivement, eux, ils n'avaient pas compris que le monde, avec Internet qui était de plus en plus, qui avait de plus en plus une forte pénétration, ils n'ont pas compris que le monde ne sera plus à la location des cassettes vidéo, mais ça sera plutôt au partage des contenus. Et c'est là où Netflix leur a damé le pion en mettant en place une plateforme de streaming où on partage les films. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Boko. Thank you. So we'll move to the next question from Adam Idris. As a company paving the entrance of a new market, is it possible to adapt without making mistakes? Because you'll be setting standards that are not yet known. Can one compete with the unknown? Over to you, Dr. Owen. Thank you.
I think that's a very interesting discussion. I'll pick out something. You say, can one set standard without making mistakes? Yes. I think we need to understand that mistakes is part of your learning process. And if you go into one of the steps in the eight-step model, or even the tips, it talks about encouraging innovation. You cannot innovate if you are afraid to fail. But the important thing is to understand that you fail in a safe way. You're not going to fail in a system that will destroy your whole enterprise. Now, being the forerunner, meaning the first person that is doing something, it kind of also gives you some confidence because you're starting something new for the first time. You're not really competing with anybody, but you have to be humble and wise enough to be able to learn from your experience. We look at the story of Apple. In the past, they used to tell you that when you're doing product innovation, you should listen to your customer, take their feedback. Apple came and they changed that. They challenged that model of thinking. They compressed music. Nobody ever thought we needed to, before we didn't think that we needed music to be so compact. We used to carry those days, if you had, so it was first of all, it was Walkman, right? It was Walkman at first. Walkman became the Discman. Oh my goodness. I remember how people used to feel very proud when you had the Discman, right? You had those piles of CDs you would carry and be feeling like a superstar. You had cars that would say they have 8 CD changer. Today, your phone is your television. Your phone is your radio. Your phone is your music. Your phone is your library. But all of these things we see today, there must have been mistakes along the way. So you will make mistakes, my dear entrepreneur. Even as a leader, you will make mistakes. You will offend your staff. You go back and say, I'm sorry, and you move on. But the important thing is that you learn from those mistakes. And there's one thing I've learned from working with my group chairman, Mr. Tony Elumelu. He says, don't waste a good crisis. Look at it. Every failure you have is an opportunity to learn, and from there to grow. Thank you. I hope that answered. Foucault?
Oui, la question posée revient à simplement dire comment mettre en place des standards sans faire des fautes ou faire des erreurs. Donc, le docteur Owen nous rappelle que le conseil est rentré dans l'une des étapes qu'on a eu à partager avec vous, c'est que vous devez prendre conscience que l'échec est une partie importante dans un processus de croissance, dans un processus de changement, dans un processus d'innovation. Alors, n'ayez pas peur de l'échec. Non. Apprenez plutôt de l'échec parce que sans échec, il n'y a pas d'innovation. Et puis, elle a dit une chose intéressante, c'est que pour prendre le cas de Apple, on nous avait toujours dit, ou bien on a toujours eu à dire qu'il faut beaucoup écouter les clients et apporter des choses qui vont permettre de satisfaire le client. Mais de vous à moi, est-ce qu'on a un jour eu un client qui avait vraiment besoin qu'on compresse la musique? Parce que nous avons connu les Walkman, on a connu les radios disques, les grosses radios avec lesquelles on se baladait. On a eu, à une époque encore récente, on ressemblait des Space Stars quand on marchait avec des piles de CD en main. Mais à la date d'aujourd'hui, tout est dans le téléphone. L'appareil photo, c'est le téléphone. La radio, le cinéma, tout, c'est le téléphone. C'est les smartphones. Donc, vous comprenez que c'est grâce à Apple qu'on a eu tous ces changements. Mais ne croyez pas que cela s'est passé comme du pain béni. Non, ils ont eu à faire beaucoup d'erreurs. Et de ces erreurs qu'ils faisaient, ils apprenaient. C'est pour ça qu'aujourd'hui, nous avons la technologie de notre époque où l'intelligence artificielle, en tout cas, est en train de se mettre en place. On vous encourage à être très vif et proactif, surtout de comprendre l'environnement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Foko. So we'll move to the next question by Ali Israel. How can businesses effectively cultivate a culture of adaptability and resilience among their employees, especially in rapidly changing industries or markets? Okay. Over to you, Dr.
Okay, so I think that's what this whole session was about. And there are some steps that are in here. I will just highlight certain things. I will just tease it out because you're asking specifically about employees. One is you need to, in your recruitment, you have to be clear about who you are bringing into your organization. You are going to recruit for attitude and train for skills, like I mentioned. Of course, this is not for all levels. You're not going to go and bring a CFO, for example. You want to not be training the person for skills, no. But bottom line is that you have to ensure that the people that you are bringing into your organization, as much as possible, have a mindset of adaptability. 1. 2, you define your processes and procedures in your organization such that they encourage that adaptability and resilience that you are trying to get within the organization. What does this mean, basically? You can have your performance management system to have certain KPIs, key performance indicators, that actually measure how people are innovating in your organization. 3, you would have reward systems. And reward system, people sometimes think of reward as only positive rewards, but you also have negative rewards. Positive rewards, you have some pure recognition. You can decide to promote people who are demonstrating that resilience and adaptability that you're looking for. And on the other hand, you have others where you're saying, no, this behavior that you've exhibited does not align with the values of the company. 4th, and that has really been talked about, communication. You have to communicate with your employees, and communication is a two-way street. You just don't talk to your employees. You have to have a system of getting feedback from them about the processes that you are putting in place. And last, but most definitely not the least, leadership that walks the talk. So it still comes back to you, the leader, who is setting the tone, who is defining, who is making recruitment decisions, who is deciding who will be hired, who will be fired, who will be rewarded, who will be punished. And how are you modifying and modeling that behavior that you want to see? I hope this helps.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Owen. Over to you, Foko, to quickly summarize and then...
Oui, la question posée nous ramène pratiquement à toute cette session parce qu'il était question de savoir comment est-ce qu'on peut facilement accepter les adaptations, les changements et mettre au devant la résilience pour ne pas avoir à subir autant de chocs. Donc, le docteur Owen est revenu sur des étapes simples. Donc, on va les résumer. Elle a par exemple dit, tout commence par le recrutement. Vous devez faire un bon recrutement. Et même quand on a déjà recruté, il faut capaciter, il faut former les gens, les coacher, les mentorer, les employés pour qu'ils soient à même à pouvoir porter la vision de l'entreprise. Elle a allé jusqu'à expliquer aussi les systèmes de récompense. La récompense n'est pas seulement positive, il y a aussi la récompense négative. C'est-à-dire, quand quelqu'un a un comportement qui n'est pas digne des valeurs de l'entreprise, il faut pouvoir être à même à lui expliquer que ce que tu fais là ne marche pas avec les valeurs de l'entreprise, qui t'a fait des blâmes. Si la personne ne comprend pas, il y aura le pire des cas. Donc, une chose sur laquelle on a aussi beaucoup insisté, c'est la communication. La communication n'est pas seulement dans un seul sens. Il faut savoir écouter les employés, il faut savoir écouter les clients, avoir des feedbacks de tout ce monde, de toutes les parties prenantes, afin de pouvoir adapter. Et pour finir, le leadership. Après tout, c'est vous, l'entrepreneur, qui êtes le commandant au bord du véhicule. Vous devez savoir à quel moment faire rentrer telle tactique, à quel moment faire rentrer telle stratégie qui va permettre à votre entreprise de pouvoir faire face aux différents challenges, aux différents défis de l'environnement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, people. So we have 2 more questions. The next one is from Michael. How can we adapt for an economy where our local currency is constantly being devalued and the inflation is on the rise? Over to you, Dr. Owen.
So I think in answering this, I will just take you back to, can you go to the 5-point model, please, quickly? I want to highlight a key point in there just to ensure that the message is clear. Aha, here we are. I think this 5-point model is this is the answer to the question. Especially if you look at number 3, the first item, focus on what you can control. You cannot control the exchange rate. It's not your decision. But what you can do is to look at it, how do I build resilience into my business model in a way that allows me to be able to adapt to the changes that are coming up. You can sit down and talk about it from now till tomorrow. It's not going to change anything. So this 5-step model, I think, is the most perfect response to the person who's asked that question. Walk through it. Because the reality is that this exchange rate that is happening to everybody. If some people are able to navigate and succeed, you're going to say, what are they doing? How do I adapt? How am I going to build resilience? And how do I get there? I gave an example of Transcorp hotels, what we did. Yes, you might say, oh, Transcorp hotel is a big business, but please, we have seen impact. I'm sorry to all the viewers, the non-Nigerian entrepreneurs. I really apologize. I am in Nigeria, so I'll use my examples. We've seen companies in Nigeria for the last 1 year. We've seen results. We've seen large corporates who are declaring losses because of the impact of the exchange rates. But on the same market, we are seeing large corporates who are declaring profits. So you have to accept the change. Focus on what you can control. Yes, you have your fears, but instead of just focusing on your fears, ask yourself, what can I do? Where do I need to pivot on my business strategy? Because I have to stay alive. My business must remain and my business must grow. So I'm just going to leave you here. Please, I don't know if you guys are going to share the slides. We just make a few tidying up here and there to share. But I think focus on what you can control, adapt your businesses, keeping in mind that failure is not an option. Foko.
Oui, la question posée est celle de savoir que dans un environnement où notre monnaie est toujours dévaluée, comment est-ce qu'on peut faire pour s'en sortir? Donc, le docteur Owen a demandé qu'on mette à l'écran les 5 étapes que nous vous avons expliquées tout à l'heure et que votre attention soit une fois de plus attirée sur l'étape 3 qui dit ceci: essayez de vous concentrer sur ce que vous contrôlez. Personne ne peut contrôler les cours de la monnaie. Ce n'est pas possible. On pourrait contrôler le cours de la monnaie. Et dans une économie, quel que soit le niveau de la monnaie, il est clair qu'il y a des entreprises qui déclarent de très fortes pertes et en même temps, il y a des entreprises qui déclarent des fluctuations positives. Donc, tout va dépendre de vous. Jouez sur les éléments que vous contrôlez. Évitez de laisser vos peurs avoir de la dominance sur vous. Ça ne va pas marcher. Donc, retenez que le plus important, c'est de rester sur ce que vous contrôlez et que tout ce qui est lié à l'environnement n'ait pas d'impact négatif sur vous. C'est vous qui avez le contrôle de la situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Boko. So the last 2 questions, which I'll just merge. so that Dr. Owen can take them. So Olarewaju says, as a leader, how do we work with discernment in managing different fresh perspectives from team members to know the rightful or the right idea to adopt in order to make a positive change in business? That's the first question. And the second is, which aspect of Transcorp PLC plays the most significant role in its growth today and how? Over to you, Dr. Owen.
Okay, thank you. Ibuku, I can see how you have just made two unrelated questions, pushed it into one so that I'll answer. Okay. Let me start with the second question and close with the first one, right? So Transcorp, we are a conglomerate, a diversified conglomerate with investments in energy, power, and hospitality. Each investment that we have brings its own unique value to the conglomerate. So it depends on what you are looking at in terms of contribution. Through our hospitality business, our brand recognition and brand extension is surpassed and second to none. And they also strongly contribute to our growth and bottom line. Our power business, simply by virtue of the way power is structured, and of course the energy business, they contribute about 80% of our revenue and profit, whilst hospitality contributes 20%. But that is on the numbers. But when you look at the brand extension, our hospitality business actually takes us way further than the other businesses. So bottom line is that every business that we have contributes, and more importantly, leads us closer to the attainment of our purpose of improving lives and transforming Africa. For our hospitality business, there's no, when you go to Abuja as a ward leader or just someone looking to stay in a very lovely place, Transcorp Hilton is the first choice. Through our Aura by Transcorp Hotels, we're also extending that our brand recognition of being the leader in hospitality space. Our power business is helping us to catalyze transformation across Nigeria as we continue to increase our available capacity and put more much needed power onto the national grid for end users. Now to close on the leadership part. You know what, Foko, please translate that first one, because maybe translate the first one, then we'll close with the second, translate what I just said, then we close with the other points. Thank you.
Okay. Donc, il y a eu deux questions. On commence par la première question, qui est la deuxième. Donc, le participant demande, qu'est-ce qui est dans la croissance de Transcorp, quel est l'élément clé qui a permis que ce soit soutenu? Donc, elle nous explique que en réalité, Transcorp, c'est un conglomérat avec plusieurs activités dans l'hébergement, l'énergie, l'électricité, dans plusieurs activités. Et que, généralement, eux, comme l'hébergement a une forte marque, donc ils ont développé une forte marque. Donc, le nom de l'entreprise est fortement connu parce qu'on sait que l'hôtel Transcorp de Abuja, c'est un hôtel classe de luxe. Donc, voilà un levier sur lequel ils se sont appuyés. Et pour d'autres raisons, ils ont eu à développer, par exemple, l'énergie renouvelable ou bien l'électricité pour soutenir le développement de leur pays, le développement du Nigeria. Ce qui fait que, en termes de chiffres, par exemple, l'énergie est pratiquement 80% de leur chiffre d'affaires. Mais en termes, et l'hébergement est 20% de leur chiffre d'affaires. Mais en termes de notoriété, c'est l'aspect hébergement qui rend l'entreprise plus connue. Donc, voilà un levier sur lequel ils ont joué et qui a permis de soutenir la croissance.
Thank you very much, Foko. Now, to the second of first, which I'm not addressing last. I find it a very interesting question because it's about leadership. As a Tony Lebon entrepreneur, I believe you went through the TOE way. If you can confirm, have they done that?
No, they're doing that next month. Yes, so they haven't gone through TOE way, yes.
Wow. Okay, so you have the TOE way that is taken by, I think, Angela Aneke.
Yes, ma'am.
When you go through that session, TOE way, it teaches you some of the tenets that Tony Lumelu has used in driving business. One of it is his use of meetings. Now, as a leader, you have a vision, some clarity of purpose. You know where you're going broadly. You're not quite sure the how. So what do? When you get different perspectives from people? It could be your employees, it could be your counselors, people that you talk to. Ultimately, the final decision rests upon you. But you have to be humble enough to take people's perspectives, different opinions, look through, analyze each one, and tie it into the ultimate goal you're trying to achieve. Or align it to say, does this take me there? Or even looking at it like, wait, hang on, with this objective, this opinion that is down on the table, it looks like I have to change my goal. I need to refine my goal and see how you get to the best point. Then one of the critical things I have learned working with Mr. Elumelu is the principle of, say, genius of and versus the tyranny of all. Quite often you find that if you pull from here, you bring them together. Instead of saying either I go this way or I go this way, you look at what are the strengths from each argument, take it out, merge it to the strengths of another argument, bring it together. You'll find that you have a situation where you have come up with a decision that is way better than what you would have done if you had only gone with what you thought was right or what one other person thought was right. But you have to be clear as a leader, because any decision you make, you own it. You own the success, you own the failure. It might sound like a bit of a conundrum, but it actually works. Be humble as a leader, be approachable as a leader, listen. And when you are listening, understand that concept to say a message is as good as its messengers. It has its positive, it has its negative side. Pay attention. Just don't follow the people who are singing your praises morning, afternoon, night. They can also be dangerous. Look at your critics and listen to the feedback and see how you improve the decision or the outcome that you are taking. And it continues to, it's a continuous process. It never ends. Thank you.
Donc, la dernière question sur laquelle on va partager avec vous, c'est une question qui ramène au leadership. Donc, la question posée est de savoir comment est-ce qu'on peut vraiment se comporter en tant que leader pour pouvoir conduire autant de changements au sein de son entreprise. Donc, elle a déjà demandé si on avait à faire les TOWs. La question, c'est non. Vous les ferez en août, dans le mois prochain, en juillet, en août. Et puis, il est question ici de comprendre que Tony partage avec vous un ensemble de caractères que lui-même il a eu à adopter pour pouvoir être ce qu'il est aujourd'hui. L'un de ces caractères, c'est le génie du « et » et la tyrannie du « ou ». Donc, selon Tony, c'est simple. Il dit, généralement, lorsqu'il y a deux idées, ne rejetez pas une idée. Prenez tout. Il dit, tant qu'il y a plusieurs choses ou bien plusieurs choix à faire, lui, il prend tous les choix. Il n'y a pas d'alternative. Il prend tous les choix, il mixe et il trouve, comment dirais-je, il trouve un consensus qui part de l'idée que tout le monde a eu à proposer. Alors que quand vous prenez un choix et vous laissez l'autre, ça crée des frustrations. Donc, dans les différents exemples qu'on a eu à prendre, il est question de vous amener à comprendre que le leader, c'est celui-là qui assume ses choix. Lorsqu'il y a échec, le leader doit assumer. Lorsqu'il y a succès, le leader doit assumer. Donc, ce n'est pas seulement que, non, lorsque ça ne marche pas, on rejette la faute sur les autres, sur les employés. Non. Le leader, c'est celui-là qui écoute tout le monde. Il prend le feedback de tout le monde. Il écoute et il permet à chacun de se sentir concerné par les décisions qui ont été prises, par les choix qui ont été pris. Et la meilleure façon, c'est de tenir compte de tous les avis lorsque on a un sujet sur lequel on débat. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Foucault. Now we have come to the end of the session. We would like to say a big thank you to Dr. Owen for such an informative and insightful session. The entrepreneurs are super excited and extend their greetings to you for such an amazing session. And they're asking if we can share the slides with them. So just to also confirm from you that we can share the slides with the entrepreneurs.
Sure. I will
Okay,
send you
all
an
right.
updated number, yes.
Okay. So we'll share the slides with you all via email today, and also a link to the YouTube so you can rewatch for those that joined very late. So again, thank you, Dr. Owen, and we hope to have you come on board soon again for another informative session. So we have now come to the end of the session. Thank you everyone for joining, and thank you for staying tuned. Thank you, Foucault, for the translations in French, and we will see you all on Thursday when we have the next Masterclass series. Bye, everyone. Thank you very much for joining.